Good afternoon and welcome to all of you who are watching this program in school buildings and to those who are viewing this program on cable vision throughout the city. I am pleased to present to you a report on the state of education in the St. Paul Public Schools and a vision which we have for the St. Paul Public Schools for the 1990s and beyond. The past 8 months have been a very rewarding and challenging experience for me as your superintendent. I've enjoyed working with you, both staff, students, parents, and citizens from the broad community of St. Paul. Before I begin, I want to thank the Board of Education for its vote of confidence in appointing me as Superintendent of St. Paul Public Schools. I also want to thank the staff, all employees of the St. Paul Public Schools, for your continued cooperation and support. Without your support and cooperation, we will not be receiving the kind of success that we're experiencing today. We have passed the halfway mark of the first year of this administration. We started in August with our commitment during opening week activities to quality education for all learners in the St. Paul Public Schools. We are committed to ensure that all learners receive a quality education. This commitment has come from a vision grounded in our pursuit to increase student achievement across school districts. It is time now to stop for a moment and examine where we are today. We call this Checkpoint Charlie. I want you to know, I wish it was possible for me to address all employees in a single location today. And that is not possible due to staff commitments and the demands of our work schedule. I am unable to do that. Therefore, this session is being videotaped so that the videotape can be made available to all of you to view in the very near future. However, for next school year, we will continue to look at ways in which we can bring us all together in a single location. I will be addressing a live group of audience today. This will be employees from all job families within the St. Paul School District. At the conclusion of my remarks, staff will have an opportunity to ask questions, and I will answer those questions along with assistance from senior members of my staff. During the few minutes which I will have today to speak with you, I will share the following. First, you will gain some further understandings of my beliefs I have about schools and employees. Second, you will learn my 5 main focus areas which are embodied in the 9 goals which have been adopted by the Board of Education. Third, you will understand how I believe we can work together as a team as we move from good to excellence in the St. Paul Public Schools. And fourth, you will have some understanding of my commitment to ensure that we have clean, safe schools within our district. My speech is based upon several basic assumptions. One, as a public entity, we receive learners from the broader community, all learners. Our learners do not come to us in neat packages, well-fed, well-clothed, or come from an environment where it is clear that they have been nurtured and nurtured well. However, we accept all learners, regardless of their race, gender, or ethnic background. We take these learners, and as one of our objectives, to move these learners to a common point in their developmental stages. That's a reality. Some of my further beliefs. I believe that we are on our way to meeting the district goals, and I would highlight that in what I call my high five. I also believe that all activities and programs that we engage ourselves in the education process of our young people must be designed to increase student achievement. I have asked members of my senior staff, as we do our annual work plan and finalize the budget for next year, I've asked them to make sure that the goals and objective we submit to the Board of Education for adopted later in April, that those goals and objectives must focus on the identified goals. If not, I've asked them to ask themselves, why are we doing this? I have a further belief that the community at large wants us to succeed. We cannot fail them. Thus, it takes all of us, a unified team, to demonstrate our commitment to these shared goals. What are some evidence I have to support these beliefs? One, I do believe parents want to be more involved in their learners' education. We recently held a parent information fair on February the 9th this past year. And on that Friday evening before the fair, we had a reception where we had better than 300 people in attendance. 3/4 of the people in attendance were parents. That demonstrates to me that parents want to be more involved in their learners' education. Another supporting factor that parents want to be involved, we have an ongoing PER committee that meets monthly. Staff have reported to me that 35 to 40 members, consisting of parents from the community, are in regular attendance at these meetings. That, once again, demonstrates to me parents want to be involved. And finally, from the array of various choice programs we have within the St. Paul Public Schools, we continue to have parents interested in how they can enroll their learner in one of the magnet school programs or one of the neighborhood school programs. Again, that's evidence to me that parents want to be involved. I have challenged staff to take advantage of that interest in parents' involvement so that we can make sure our learners will have the kind of support they need to be successful. The 5 initiatives which I have identified from the 9 broad goals that we are going to focus on this year and also for next year. 1, learning readiness. Once again, as we look at the research on learning readiness, it is clear to me we must begin to identify, develop, design those educational programs that are going to begin to get more of our young people ages 3 and 4 ready to learn. In a recent study by the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, they pointed out that approximately 1.5 million American young people enter kindergarten not ready to learn. As we analyze the 1990 census data for the city of St. Paul, we have identified well over 45 young people ages 3 and 4 who will be entering kindergarten in the fall of 92-93. Currently, we do not have programs serving those young people. Furthermore, approximately 50% of that 4,500 students who will enter kindergarten this fall will be classified students who are at risk of failure. We must design programs to meet the needs of these young people. With that in mind, I'm pleased to report to you, we have submitted a planning grant to the Minnesota Department of Education designed to implement a learning readiness program beginning fall of 92-93. This plan was developed with input from broad-based community participation. We are cooperating with Ramsey County Human Services, the City of St. Paul, and several private child care organizations. Together, we are going to ensure we mobilize, we energize all of the resources we have available to us to design the best program possible for our 3- and 4-year-old learners. What are some of the attributes of learning readiness that we will examine? We will look at the youngster's sociability, whether he, she is developed along the lines to be able to interact with other young people their age. We will look at the healthcare needs of these individuals. We will look at the nutrition needs of these individuals. We will look at their learning development. Are they able to recognize primary and secondary colors at this early age? And finally, we will try to determine to what degree parents have been involved in the development of their youngsters' education at that point. Second of my high five has to address increased student achievement. With an emphasis on higher student achievement, we operate from a basic assumption that we believe all learners can learn, and these learners can learn at high levels, assuming they are provided an opportunity to do so. We must support that belief if we're going to be effective with all of our learners. What are we doing to address that need? I have directed the Staff Development Department to begin to design, develop, implement, and evaluate a staff development program that will begin to enhance the instructional strategies of our staff. I've shared a little anecdote with several members of the staff early on, and I would like to share it with all of you at this time. St. Paul Public Schools, not unlike other urban districts, are going through a change in demographics. In 1970, when I entered St. Paul Public Schools had a student population of students of color less than 10%. We're now exceeding 45% student of color. St. Paul Public Schools, much like the state of Minnesota, once again has demonstrated its ability to educate students from white middle class backgrounds. We've done a good job of that over the years. My challenge to the staff today, let's demonstrate that we can do equally as well with a population that is culturally diverse. I know we can do it. I've asked the Staff Development Department to begin designing education programs and training programs that would allow us to acquire those kinds of skills that's going to enable us to be more effective as we teach our learners of a diverse student population. Second, I have challenged the Chapter 1 program, which is the largest remedial program we have in the district, to design an education program which will ensure that our learners who are in the Chapter 1 program will be successful enough that they will be able to move out of the Chapter 1 program within a year. If it is determined that these youngsters need longer than a year to try the necessary skills to keep them on the level of learning with their peers, we will then develop a personalized learning plan as to when that youngster will leave Chapter 1. I firmly believe If we are going to become a district of excellence, we must reduce the number of students who enter remedial programs. We continue to hear that we are not serving all of the youngsters who needs Chapter 1. My challenge is, let's serve those youngsters well, the ones that we are serving. I do not want to see a student entering Chapter 1 program at grade 1 and remain in that program throughout grade 6. I do believe we can do a better job than that. The second area in student achievement that we're going to examine, we're going to do a better job of identifying those youngsters who need help at an early age. And we're going to begin in grade 1. We're going to attempt to pilot a program in Chapter 1 next year called Reading Recovery. When I use the term pilot, we're going to pilot in St. Paul Public Schools, but this is a program that is research-based, has been proven to be effective. So we will only be piloting in St. Paul Public Schools because we do not have sufficient funds to implement it across all grade levels within the district. I've received a recommendation from staff on how we can do that. I am looking forward to fine-tuning that recommendation so I can include it as a recommendation to the Board of Education for adoption this fall. In special education, I'm pleased to report to you that we're constantly looking at ways and how we can, number one, better identify those youngsters who need special education services. Hopefully there'll be less misdiagnosing for special education. We're now involved in an alternative delivery system, working with the University of Minnesota with us on this. We currently have 7 schools involved in the alternative delivery system for special education services. What this entails, special education teachers working side by side with the regular education teachers on delivering services to all students in that environment. At the secondary level, we this year changed our policy whereby students who miss 15 days of absence receive an automatic drop or failure from that class. We no longer have that policy in place. We're taking a more positive approach to deal with high absentee rate. Staff are now tracking students who have high absentee rate and began to provide those necessary support services to get those young people back in school as well as get them achieving at a successful level. In the planning and support areas, it is important for us on a regular basis to know how well we are doing. The Research Evaluation and Testing Department will continue to plan and implement testing programs to assist us with our learning objectives. We will continue to improve on the reporting of our progress and the progress of those students on a state-by-state basis as well as how we compare nationally. Staff will continue to consult with each other to help them plan education programs to meet students' needs. We'll become more outcome-focused than we are in terms of credits and seat time. The third of the high five deals with increasing the quality and quantity of our graduates from St. Paul Public Schools. Earlier this year, I challenged staff to take a look at the class of 1997, which would be our current 7th grade students. And I'd asked staff that I wanted to see 90% or more of the current 7th grade students graduate with their class. I'm pleased again to report to you, staff has accepted this challenge to the point they have revised my goal. We now have a goal that 97% of our current 7th grade students will graduate with the class of 1997. We now have a theme, 97 by 97. I'm excited about that. But I'm also excited because we're also looking at the quality of these graduates. And we have established some ground rules, standards by which we're going to measure the quality of these graduates. For those graduates who plan to enter the workforce upon graduation, we're going to say to them, you must be able to demonstrate that you meet the standards outlined in the SCANS report. And the SCANS report identify 5 competencies in which a graduate must have in order to enter the job market. For those youngsters who are going to continue their post-secondary education, we have 2 standards that we're going to use. One is called the Q7 standards, which are produced by the university system here in the state of Minnesota, which states that if a youngster plans to enter a post-secondary institution, that is a 4-year post-secondary institution, he or she must bring to that institution 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of science, 3 years of electives, and in that electives, it must include at least 2 years of a second language. The second standard which we will use to measure the quality of our graduates has to do with the Minnesota graduates' outcome. The Minnesota graduates' outcome is similar to the SCANS report. What we have done recently, we have taken the SCANS report and the Minnesota graduation outcomes and put them side by side, and we find that they are congruent with each other. So you see, it is not enough to only focus on increasing the graduation rate. It is equally as important to look at the quality of our graduates. Up to this point, I've focused my remarks on those activities and those employees who are involved directly with the instruction and program of our learners. However, I do not want to forget others who play an important role in the education of our young people. I would now like to address those individuals. These are individuals that many times are in the background. We don't hear too much about them unless there's a problem. But please believe me, we need them, and they play an important role. For example, to our custodians, building maintenance, and tradespeople, we value you. You're important to us. We want and must have clean, safe facilities. You provide that kind of support for us. Once again, research clear to us, students learn better in a clean, safe school environment. To our food service people who keep the learners well fed both morning and afternoon. Once again, without your help, your support, we could not be effective with our learners. To our space designers who help us fit space to meet program needs. And nothing is more evident of that more recently purchase of several facilities within the city of St. Paul that went through major renovation. I am now a firm believer of what architects can do with an old building. We appreciate that. To our transportation workers, we transport well over 33,000 students per day, both public and non-public. We do this with minimum amount of inconvenience for the most part. We appreciate that to those folks in transportation. To our clerical and support staff, you are a vital link to what we do, both administratively as well as instructionally. You make sure things run smoothly for us, both in the buildings and then outside of the building as well. We appreciate your work. Keep it up. To the business office, student placements individuals, human service people, we need you. Today is March 6th, which is a payday. Without you, I will not have people in this audience today, I think, smiling at me. And those of you in the building out there, I don't believe you will be too happy. We need those individuals. They play an important role to us. We appreciate that. And I can assure you as your superintendent, as you work in your respective areas, all of you, I will continue to work to make sure you're provided the kinds of resources you need to do your job and do it well. The other area I want to address, dealing with parent involvement. Early on in my administration, I indicated to the Board of Education that I felt parent involvement was essential to our success with our young people. I established an Office of Parent Community Volunteers. I'm pleased to report to you that that office is now fully staffed and about the business of involving parents, students, and working with building administrators and teachers on how we can improve the relationships between parents and staff. I've directed them to make sure we begin to identify all of those young people, young parents in particular, who need our help in how to become more involved in their learners' education. Second challenge I've given to them, we have a cohort of parents who are ready, able, and willing to assist those learners in their education. All they need is how to access the system to be more effective. I've asked them to assist those parents as well. I firmly believe if a learner is to be successful in school, it's going to require partnerships, not only with parents, but partnerships with the broader community. We need more community organizations, individual leaders within the community to come forward and help us. I would like to applaud Councilman Bill Wilson, St. Paul City Council. He recently informed me that he has organized a 100 African American male Saturday Academy. We appreciate that. That academy will meet on Saturdays, will be designed to focus primarily on African American males to help them with their self-discipline, self-esteem, and how to be more non-violent. I also want to commend those individuals who were involved in the New American program. It once was called the New American Access Program, meets on a Saturday. Staff has reported to me that program has been very successful in helping our new immigrants make adjustments in this country as well as the city of St. Paul. Another area which I want to focus on has to do with adult literacy. I'm asked quite often, Curman, why did you include adult literacy as one of your high five? And when I cite the statistics dealing with adult literacy in the city of St. Paul, then I think the answer is quite clear. Early on, staff had given me some information which said that we had in excess of 50,000 adult illiterates living in the city of St. Paul, the St. Paul area. Upon an analysis of the 1990 census, staff information was confirmed. We are currently serving a little less than 4,000 of those 50,000 adult illiterates. I do believe we cannot afford to have this human resource go to waste. If an individual is to be effective, it is clear to us he, she must be able to read and write. We begin to emphasize with our learners now, it is not just enough to learn something once and think that it will last you a lifetime. We know with the changing technology, changing conditions, as we move from more to an information age, information must be processed timely. One can only do that if they are literate. So therefore I made that as one of my high priorities to ensure that that population become literate. All of these goals and activities which I've addressed today is just the beginning. As we embark upon that journey, moving from good to excellence, we must recommit, re-engage ourselves to all learners and see to it that each learner develop to the fullest of his or her potential. And I want to shift to an area that is very important. It has to do with safe schools. Recently, staff has brought to my attention that we need to pay more attention to school safety. And I want to make it crystal clear to all staff. We will have safe schools. I repeat, we will have safe schools. Without ensuring learners and their parents that schools are safe, we cannot move from good to excellence. What am I going to ask staff to do? I'm going to ask staff to make sure parents, community people, understand we need your help to have safe schools. I challenge each parent that if you help us to have safe schools, we're going to ensure you we're going to have quality education. What do I want from you as parents? One, as it relates to having weapons in schools, safe schools mean we do not have weapons. I'm going to ask you to take the responsibility to make sure that your learner, as she leaves school in the morning, will not leave home with a weapon. Also, make sure your learner clearly understands she is not to inflict violence on another student. If you do that, I can assure you, staff and I will make sure that that learner will not receive that weapon while he or she is at school. What else can I ask you to do? I need you to revisit with your youngster what is the purpose of school. Why that youngster leaves home each morning to go to school. If you need help with that, we are prepared to do that. Also, to ensure safe schools, I'm also going to ask staff. I want us to operate schools so that it is clear to students we're going to be fair, firm, we're going to do this in a very caring environment. I do believe this kind of approach will give us better results than the kind of approach that's been used previously to deal with violence in the schools, i.e., I do not want to see us install metal detectors before a youngster enters the building. I do not want to see us increase the police force within our buildings. I believe we'll be sending the wrong message to our learners and to our communities. I want to send the message to our community and our learners. We are an educational institution. We are not a correctional institution. Installing metal detectors, adding more police officers in our buildings sends a different message. I do not want to send that message. If we want results in the long term, I do believe working together, parents, staff, and students, we can change this tide in which we are moving from violence in our schools. I'm also asked, Curman, you have asked us, or you have charged us to do all of this at a time when we have limited resources. Yes, I have. I've said to staff repeatedly, I will be the first one fighting as hard as I can, talking with whomever I can to get more monies for the St. Paul Public Schools. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that on an ongoing basis. But in the meantime, we're going to put much of our energies into looking at our current resources. Where we can reallocate, we're going to reallocate. Those programs that are working and are working well, we're going to keep them and we're going to enhance them. Those programs and those activities that are not working well will no longer continue to exist. They will be discontinued. That's how we're going to deal with this. Time will come when we're going to get additional resources. At such time, we'll make use of those resources. Example, we're in the second year of budget reduction for the St. Paul Public Schools. 2 years ago, the general fund budget was reduced by $10.2 million. The current year, reduced by $7.5 million. We anticipate that the budget reduction for the upcoming year could be as high as $4 million. With these kinds of reductions, It means that we have to learn how to work smarter, spend smarter, and become more efficient and effectively in our business. We can do it. What is the bottom line? St. Paul Public Schools is a good school district. Each one of you are valued in your work. Each one of you can, and I do believe will, commit yourself to increasing student achievement within the St. Paul Public Schools. The Board of Education has given us a blueprint, and that blueprint is those 9 goals. We're going to take that blueprint as we travel on our journey to excellence to ensure we do not lose sight of what's important. And what is that? Higher student achievement. And in closing, I would like to say, your superintendent is only as good as the team that he has working with him. You, the employees, parents, citizens of St. Paul. We need each other. Let's work together to make sure that the schools we nurture today will become the schools of tomorrow. Thank you. At this time, we're going to open the floor for questions, and I do have my staff here to assist me in responding to questions that you may have in the audience. Not everybody at one time, just one question. Yes. Okay, the question was, as I focus on reducing violence in the schools, have identified those programs that we could possibly begin to implement to address this issue. The answer to that is we're just beginning to do that. We currently have staff looking at what is called a nonviolent curriculum. That is, I don't know the details of it at this point in time, but I know Dr. Sorensen and her staff, as well as Dr. Smith, are beginning to look at those specific programs. What I have said to my senior staff on this issue, I am laying the groundwork, I'm giving you my focus, and I'm giving my staff the responsibility to begin to identify what I call the how we do this. I know that there are programs out there, but at this point in time, I'm not able to articulate to you the specific ones on that.
Could we ask folks to come to the microphone so that our audience and the cable can hear what we're saying? Thank you.
Dr. Gaines, I have 2 questions. The first question is, regarding parent involvement, do you foresee any plans in the future for either the board to come up with and distribute a brochure for parent involvement, or is that the business of the building principal?
Thank you. I have designated the Office of Parent-Community Relation to provide leadership in developing those brochures. I do believe that we have put out one pamphlet of brochures, a brochure that we're distributing to parents. But I do believe that the Office of Parent-Community Relationship at this point are ready and prepared to begin to assist parents with that.
May I ask my second question?
Yes, you may.
Okay, and that has to do with the scans report.
Yes.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how the scans report and those foundations and competencies will be included or involved in some way in the curriculum at the secondary level.
Okay, very good. What I've asked, again, Dr. Sorensen and Ms. McBee, to begin to work with building principals to, number one, we have distributed the scans report throughout the secondary schools. So the information is now out there. What I'm asking them now to do, and I hope we can begin to do this as early as fall of '92, have secondary school principals as they develop their school improvement plans and their goals and objectives for the '92-'93 school year. I'm hoping that they will take the scans report and begin to develop curriculum and instruction strategies to make sure those youngsters are beginning to acquire those competencies laid out in the scans report. Thank you.
Dr. Gaines, you had talked about the students having difficulty in school and implementing a new program in first grade for those readers that were behind. As you're well aware of, though, we have many gifted children in St. Paul, and I was wondering if you have a vision on new programs for them.
Thank you. That's a very good question. I intentionally didn't focus on that, and I appreciate the question in my remarks in terms of the gifted, because as you're aware, so much attention has been recently given to the gift and talent programs and the magnet programs. I did not want to play it up. But what we're going to do in those areas, that when I talk about making sure that all learners are successful, that includes those who are on the other end, we call the G&T end as well. We will continue to make sure those programs enhance and broaden to meet the needs of those youngsters. Because one of the things I've said when I've taken a look at the assessment, annual assessment test scores, we have seen that our test scores for particular student of color are continuing to increase on an annual basis. But at the same time, those students who are above the average, they're also increasing. And what I've said to staff, I do not want to see us say that we're being successful, all learners, by the top group coming down and the bottom group going up. I want to see this happen, and it may not happen in my lifetime, but I don't want to see the success is at the expense of the people who are at the top. I want to make sure both of them move at the same time. So I appreciate that question.
Dr. Gaines, St. Paul has a very good staff development program, and you alluded to the fact that they were going to move in some different directions. Could you or your staff give us a little glimpse of what the staff development program might be in the future?
Sure. Dr. Smith, are you ready to respond to that? Did you hear the question? Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Gaines. We believe in the staff development department that in order for us to do that which we want to do most, to improve staff student achievement, then we have to improve those skills of the people who work with the children, all of the people. And for most of us, particularly if you are my age or older, we weren't trained with some of the new techniques, instructional strategies that improved the learnings of all of the children, and particularly with the diversity that we now have. So our emphasis will be on improving all of those skills that get us closer to moving children to where we want them to be. And could I just add one other thing? We also believe that the impetus for what is important for students should, in the main, come from the buildings, the people who are working with the children. And so we are trying to build a program where buildings will have much more input in terms of the staff development that happens for them. Thank you.
Thank you.
A different topic,
Sure.
Dr. Gaines?
Yes.
I would like to see if you could share with us what some of the implementation or policies that you will have to ensure at the building level how we are going to have the safe schools.
The question was that some of the implementation and how we're going to do. One of the things that we have been guilty of over the last several years, when a youngster experiences difficulty in a building, and I'm thinking in terms now of for disciplinary reasons, we have moved that youngster from one building to the other. What I am directing staff to do, in a case where a youngster assaults another student or a staff person, I'm viewing that as serious enough that we do not want that youngster in our schools at all. If he or she is going to be a threat in building X, I firmly believe without major intervention, that youngster is going to be a threat in building Y. So one of the things we will cease doing is make an administrative transfer when it involves an assault with a weapon or an assault which cause bodily harm. We're no longer going to be transferring youngsters from building to building. However, we will continue to look at transferring youngsters if it's for educational purposes. But if it involves disciplinary action, which the disciplinary action results in a threat of bodily harm to another individual, we will no longer do that.
Dr. Gaines, it's a real pleasure to be here today.
Thank you.
And I was listening intently, and one of the very first things you indicated was the high priority you put on parent-family involvement in the schools. And I thoroughly believe in that. And the further idea was that you brought up a little bit later was in reference to the adult literacy and the emphasis that we're putting on that in the area that I happen to work with in community education. And the two tie together so beautifully because the family involvement, the parent involvement, the young person involvement all ties in. And you said within your lifetime or maybe but in the future, you know, what I see is this happening that pretty soon, you know, in a number of years, we'll have a totally literate community so that this lifelong learning concept will be totally integrated throughout the whole system. It's just an exciting time.
Well, thank you for that comment.
Dr. Gaines, I know that you are continuing with your leadership the importance of a community school parent partnership. I'm wondering if you could share with us your reflections on building in a community service component to students' graduation.
Thank you very much. I firmly believe, and it's part of one of the 9 goals which the board have adopted, lifelong learning. I do believe that the more we're able to get our young people involved, become aware of the value of community services, I do believe that's going to help that individual develop to his or her fullest potential. One of the things we're currently looking at now, we have a very active and strong community service program in the St. Paul schools. I hope within the very near future we can be able to submit a proposal to the Board of Education that would make community services part of graduation requirement. We do believe, and I've had some discussion with staff on this, as we look at the success we're currently having in Project Fresh Force, which coordinates community service for our students, clearly demonstrates to us that our young people could benefit and benefit quite well from more community service involvement. So yes, I believe very strongly in community service, and hopefully that we can incorporate that into our graduation requirements.
Well, Dr. Gaines, I'm Mike Hager with the maintenance department, and I guess I don't really have a question for you. I just want to give you something to think about. It's team effort and everything. As far as the building maintenance goes, the buildings are getting older and older and older and requiring more maintenance, but yet there's no more staff. In fact, they're cutting back on the custodians and everything, but yet like the Rondo Center and that, and then they keep purchasing more buildings and such without increasing the staff. And I realize you're all aware of this, but I just, you know, and another thing that I'd like the teachers to understand is the backlog of work because of the increased number of square footage of the buildings we have is increasing ever so, and it's just too bad that they have to wait for such a long amount of time to get a simple repair made in the buildings, you know, and I just would like them to understand that we're doing everything that we have the manpower to do. So, thank you.
I really appreciate I really appreciate those comments, and I want you to know I am aware of the points that you made, and I want to submit to you that one of the things I've said to staff over and over, many times I talk about learning and effectiveness of learning. I do not want this learning to take place in an environment that is not safe, clean, and well-maintained. I think you will begin to see, as we even look at budget reductions, we're now going to ask the maintenance custodian in the area to take a disproportionate amount of reduction to balance the budget. So I appreciate that. One thing I want to mention on that too, which I think is equally as important, as the gentleman indicated, they're having a difficult time keeping pace with the work orders. I also have to remind building principals and staff as well, you also got to help us make sure we communicate to our students. Once we make a repair, once we renovate a building, you got to help us keep it in good working condition. I got a report 2 weeks ago at one of our most recently renovated building, and the amount of vandalism which have taken place in that building is just unthinkable. So we can't acquire a new building, renovate them, make them nice and clean, and within less than a year, they began to look like an old building. So that's another area in which we're going to improve on to try to keep the maintenance at least manageable. Yes.
Dr. Gaines, while we're sort of on the topic of total school teams, I'm wondering if you could suggest some concrete methods that the notion of teamwork, the idea of a school team functioning together, can transfer from being just an idea at the superintendency to the functioning of individual schools in the district.
Okay. Sure. One of the things that, just a few concrete example would be communications. We must do a better job of communicating across organization, across district lines. As we look at teamwork, and I'm being a little cautious because my staff remind me I can't use athletic too much as an example. So I'm trying to pull on some of my other experience as well. But in any kind of organization, sports, group activity that involves one or more person, it requires communication, how you communicate. Second of all, on a team, you're there because you're needed. You're there because you make a vital contribution to the success of that organization. Therefore, trust has to be involved there. We have to work on building better trusting relationships of all. Third of all, then you have to look at, there are times when you have to carry a little bit more of your responsibility than you usually will do. If one of your staff person is out of the office or out of the classroom or needs some help in solving a major problem, you got to do some sharing. That's the thing that we got to do. Another area which I think we got to do is responding to one another more in a timely manner. Because without that, the team system breaks down. If you're working on a project in a particular area, you need to help someone in another department or organization in order for you to complete your work. If they do not respond to you timely, you're not going to be able to get your work done timely, and I'm sure it's going to impact the quality of that work as well. So sharing and communicating, taking over a little extra work from time to time in order to make sure the job is done and done in a timely manner. We talked about staff development early on. We sometimes forget what it means to work on a team, and we have to relearn some of those skills that we learned when we were in kindergarten. Those of us who are 30 and over may tend to forget that. But that's another strategy that one should be to pull on to be successful. And it really, really is important about the team concept. I use that term and I say that, and I think members of my senior staff will tell you, I rely on them, I depend on them, and they're there because they have something to offer. As I said, as smart as I am, but I still need help, and that's why I have them around. And I'm not too shy to let them know that. I want them to know that I value their input. That's what we have to do as administrators. We have to let the people we know that work with us, we value them. We value their input. That kind of an attitude, I do believe, improves the effectiveness of team works. Is there another question? Well, no other question? I want to say to all of you in the buildings watching today, Thank you. To those of you in the audience, thank you. And to those of you viewing on cable television, thank you.